What's up, everybody?
What's up, everybody?
What's up, everybody?
Y'all about to hear some crazy shit.
And now, it's the Called Podcast. Live at the Called Studio in Trinity. With Travis Powers and Brendan Powers.
Who do we have here today?
Oh, we got Logan Hand, man. This is crazy. Logan Hand. This is literally my longest friend ever.
Wow.
Yeah, so I guess let's start with that because that's a good story. So I met Logan when I was, oh God, man, like four, five?
Well,
at St. Mark's, right?
Yeah, kindergarten.
Kindergarten, yeah. Seriously.
Kindergarten, really?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
It was, I'm not joking when I say he was my like legitimate first friend. I was really, really, really shy. And with that age, you know, I was all weird, probably because my parents had just been divorced like pretty recently.
You're still pretty weird, just to be clear.
Oh, yeah, no, I'm very strange. But I was really like introverted as a young kid. And I remember I was, as far as I can remember, you could probably tell it better, but I remember we were out on recess and it was like our first week or two of school. And I'm out there all like, who can I even talk to and play with? And then this dude just walks up. He's like, oh, hey, I'm Logan. Who are you? And I'm like,
that's cool.
my name's Brandon. He's like, you want to be my friend? And I was like, okay. And then we're friends. and then that was the end of that.
The rest is history, basically.
And then it was just 30 years of carpooling after that.
I think our parents were so terrified of separating us in the hell wrath they'd have to face at home that they just kept us in the same school.
Oh, yeah. And that's something to note, too, is that we, you know, every time we would, because, you know, some of the schools we went to, they only would go to like middle school.
Yeah.
They'd go to like
Fourth
grade school.
Grade or something.
And then we'd have to switch. And so, God forbid, we didn't go to the same school.
Mm-hmm.
And so we'd be like, well, Mom, you know, Logan's going over to West Lake, and I can't not go to West Lake, Mom. Like, that's not even
So
an
it was
option.
all like Pinellas area?
Yeah.
Yeah, Clearwater, Palm Harbor.
And it was always seemed like we never went to school close to our actual house. Like,
No.
what the hell was up with that?
I don't know. That was just private school stuff.
Yeah,
you know?
private school stuff. And I think we separated in...
I left in seventh grade.
Yes,
seventh grade was my first grade because it freaked me out so
public
bad,
school.
dude. It freaked me. I was ruined for weeks going
Like, where's
from
my brother? That's when you guys stopped going in seventh grade, going to the same school?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I transitioned into public school. In seventh, my mom asked me because I hit middle school, and she's like, "Well, do you want to go to middle school in public or private?" And I said, "Oh, I don't want to go to public school." So I went to sixth grade with him, and then she asked me again. She goes, "Are you sure?" And I was like, "Maybe I do. Yeah, maybe I'll try it." And then, so I left, and then he was still at this, and he's like, "Bro, this is so bad without you here, man." And I was like, "Oh, you have no idea, bro. There's like 700 kids here, dude. I don't even know what I'm doing."
Yeah, but I remember hearing what public school was like from your experience, and I was
you were like, "That sounds awesome."
I know.
Man."
I was like, "Yo, Mom, like, when the fuck can I go to public school?"
Yeah, I was like, "Dude, I don't have to wear uniforms, and like,
Yeah.
I can have my headphones."
Did they still spank when you guys went to private school?
No,
it wasn't like that. We didn't have nuns. It wasn't like Catholic. It was just.
It was like we had like a there was basically a period where there was like a mass in the morning, and all the teachers were Christian. It wasn't super hardcore like.
What was the uniform like? Was it collared shirts or something?
Collared shirts, and they were always like ugly colors, like burgundy and forest green.
And olive green and gray and tan, and you can only wear.
Remember, they had those belts that were like magnets, you know? They were like stretchy.
Yeah. Well, that was when we hit like middle. Before that, it was like those old school grandpa belts with like the.
And it was
like it went through the.
You know, it's interesting because now as an adult, I think about it. I'm like, what a fucking racket that is. Like, kids are forced to wear a certain thing, and they have to buy all this shit from one company.
Yeah,
and whoever makes all that shit is just rolling in dough because they have no choice but to buy it from them.
Yeah, we had to go.
What do you think? What do you think the positive side of wearing uniforms for kids is, though? I think there's something they're trying to.
Yeah, there's like, you know, you don't have to think about stuff in the morning, and I think it creates like. I think it eliminates certain kids getting made fun of, like certain,
it definitely
stuff
did,
like
dude. Because when I went from everybody having to, I mean, you still got made fun of if you wore glasses and nobody else did. You got made fun of for that. But
that's true.
It's just kids, you know. Kids are like that. But going from middle school in a private school setting where everybody's basically looking the same, and you guys can only have their hair in a certain hairstyle or whatever, and then you go to public school and you kind of can dress however you want. I got slaughtered, dude. Because I wasn't even accustomed to dealing with it. You know, I was like walking there like, and they're like, who's this ham sandwich? You know what I mean? Like, what the heck is this guy doing here?
I can remember because I switched to public school in high school, and I remember the first like week or 2 weeks, I was like, it took me forever because I was like, yo, I get to like figure out what to wear in the morning.
Yeah, because you're like,
I get to choose what I put on.
There's that really cute girl in my first period.
Like,
she won't even look at me. What do I do?
Yeah, and I would always start with the shoes and work my way up from there.
There you go. You had to have some kind of program there. I
and
guess.
that was the thing too. They limited. You know, that's I guess the downside to, you know, wearing uniforms and even they dictated the shoes you could wear. It was like there was no creativity at all.
Yep, that's right. That's true. That's probably why we're so out to lunch with how we are nowadays, because we got.
Yeah. Well, I went to a private school 1st through 4th grade, and so I went from kindergarten was public, then 1st through 4th was a private school, and it was like kind of like Christian school, like you guys were talking about,
right?
And we didn't have to wear a uniform. They didn't have like a T-shirt or a collared shirt you'd wear with the emblem on it. It was more like you just have to wear like a collared shirt. I think it had to be button up, and you had to wear slacks. You couldn't wear.
Yeah, we always had to. We had like 2 Fridays a month. They'd let us wear
jeans. I do remember though, educationally wise. Like, I remember sitting in my 12th grade English class.
Yeah, we were like
12th grade English class, and they're teaching shit that they taught us in 4th grade.
Yeah.
And I'm literally looking around at these fucking kids, and I'm like,
and they're sitting there like,
is this seriously the first time you've ever seen this? I did this shit when I was 6.
Or like cursive writing. I remember when
kids don't get taught cursive.
I remember when I did
not anymore, I don't think.
No.
Well, I can still. I mean, my cursive's not very good. My brother's is ridiculous.
At least they're teaching them to write. Like, I think it's 2021. Like, how obsolete is writing? Why the fuck do you even need to know how to write?
I know. Right. But anyway, so yeah, that's like a little brief, weird little thing. We went through private school together, and now here we are doing our thing. So, Logan, you've got your resume or whatever you want to call it is pretty weird. It's pretty like not a typical, 29-year-old's resume. So, what do you want to say here in terms of your intro? What do you do? What do you do, Logan?
Too much probably.
Yeah.
I guess everything is perceptionally different nowadays. You have so many different people doing things at younger ages. I think age is just more of a mental state and number than anything.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, I mean, where do you want me to start?
I mean, just kind of give us a brief, whatever brief means to you, but just, like, what are you doing in terms of your job, and does that make you happy, and
all that good stuff?
Because you've also been through all this, like, your courses you've been doing for like self-development and all that. So that's probably got to be a big tie-in for you. And you started off. I remember the days of you being in college and like doing custom shoes in your dorm room. It's like
I've always been fascinated and interested by making money and how you have your own business and be an entrepreneur and all that stuff. It's just always been interesting to me. And that was what I thought was cool. And I never once had a desire to work for someone or get a job. I always hated school. It just didn't feel like it was a for me type of thing. I felt like it was like, programmed to put people in a box and, get jobs for people and stuff like that. So, I graduated college in 2014. I got my insurance license when I was 18 years old. So my story takes a lot of weird turns because I grew up around, my dad was in the financial services business, and that was kind of the business I grew up around. So at 18, I got my insurance license and started selling, and I got paid strictly on commission. So I would sell like burial life insurance policies for people to pay for their funeral and health insurance for people on Medicare. And what I would do is over the summers, I would literally go and sell all summer long. And I would make enough money in the 3 months of summer that I basically made, more than what kids would do working a part-time job all year while they're in school. So like what I would do in the summer would, do everything for the whole year. Yeah. And then when I graduated college, I was just like, well, I'm just going to, hustle and do the shit that I know how to do, which is, sell these insurance policies. And about a year and a half of doing that, I was like, wanted to fucking blow my brains out because I was like, I hate this. Like, I don't.
Was there a lot of time on the phone when you're doing that?
No, I was like in and out of people's trailers and shit.
Oh, okay.
Like they would
so basically you go to a neighborhood and you start knocking on doors, or
it was like no. So the company that you would sell for, like that owned the insurance company, right?
Right.
Like they would send out like shitloads of mail to these seniors that are like, fill this out and get some shit for free. But then at the bottom, there's like a little like line that says like, an insurance agent may show up at your house, to give you this information. Yeah. But they don't ever read that, right? So they give you this stack of leads that you have to buy, right? So each week I'd buy, 30, 40 leads. And then I would go like have all these addresses. You try to call them, but nobody'd ever pick up. So you'd literally just roll up on these people.
Okay.
And it's like
hey, I'm so and so. You filled out this information.
Yeah, and then you like have it in their face because they're like, I don't remember doing that. And you're like, no, well, is this your handwriting? It's like a scan of them filling it out. So they're like, oh, well, I guess I did fill that out. So, you're in all sorts of different places and you're driving all day long, all the time. Like it's shitty. But that was what I knew how to do, but I had zero like desire or passion. So after that, I was like super burnt out. I was like, yo, I can't do this. I want to like kill myself every day.
Right.
And, so I started searching. I was like, what am I good at? What I asked people in my life, I asked all the women, like, what do you think I'd be good at? What do you see me? And one thing that, was a commonality was they all realized like, you're selling insurance, but when you're at home, you're like, going on Zillow and you're looking at houses and you're watching all these like fixing house shows and you're like obsessed about real estate shit, and they're like, you're good at selling and negotiating and numbers and creativity and all this shit. They're like, maybe you should do something around real estate. And I never wanted to be a real estate agent. Like I was like, I'm already a sales person. I don't want to go sell some other shit. Like I don't want to.
You went to college. You did all these things. I don't want another certificate. I just want to get my hands dirty.
Yeah, I just never wanted to be like, a sales guy that's just selling stuff. And a real estate agent to me felt like, hey, they were selling things. Right. And so I was like, I want to be the investor, the person that buys the thing. They figure out how to make money on the equity and the investment of the property. But I was like, but I don't have enough money to,
get started.
Yeah. So I was like, so I started Googling. I was like, is there a way to invest in real estate without having money? And so you go down this rabbit hole and you find out there's all these programs that teach you how to, get into it with no money into it. So I bought a course for like $300. And then at the end of the course, they're like, hey, you could try to do all this shit yourself and like see if you figure it out, or you can hire a mentor, and we hook you up with someone that's already successful and then they, mentor you. So, I did that. It was like, I think it was like $5,000 and I only had like maybe $4,000 to my name.
Right.
And I had, rent and shit every month too, which was probably like $1,100.
So there goes the buffer.
Yeah. So my first deal would be kind of like the deal that I structured to get into the deal, just to even try to be successful at something. So I went to one of my friends that my girlfriend at the time knew, and he had just gotten an insurance settlement. And he got like $250,000 from somebody crashing something, whatever. And so I was like, hey,
I remember that.
Yeah, I was like, yo, I was like, can you? Lend me $2,500 because that was like you said, the buffer that I kind of needed.
Right.
And I was like, and I'll pay you 12% interest annualized. And however long it takes me to pay you back, that's the interest, but you'll earn 12% on an annual basis. And I'll have it back to you in 120 days. And so he was like, okay. So I got $25 from him. I took his $2,500 paid it for the mentoring thing, and then I put $2,500 of my own money in. So it was kind of like I had skin in the game too.
Right.
And then I just went full time into that from day one. Like I was like, well, I'm already full time commission based. So what's the difference if I'm full time here commission? It
was just basically you kind of jumped into it.
Yeah.
But it's cool because I think for me personally, I was just a worker, man, and I had this infrastructure already set up for me. So like when you work and you're a salesperson where you're selling a car, musical gear or whatever, they set up this infrastructure for you, and then you enter into that, and so much of your job is taken care of for you.
Right.
To be as young as you were and to decipher there is no difference. It's just a move. I would think it was like kind of like a brave thing to do is to. For me, it would have been like, oh, I don't know, man. I don't want to build my own music store and sell out of it. I don't want to build my own store and sell out of it. So it's almost like at that point, you're going, all I need to do is build my own business and do what I've been doing there instead of over here.
Yeah. And I always tell people, and because I coach people and in different capacities, but I always, one common thread that I find is I call it the jump. Like a lot of people are afraid of the jump,
Okay.
And I always say like entrepreneurship, the best way to describe it always is you're jumping out of an airplane and you're building the parachute on the way down.
Yeah.
Like you don't know that you have a parachute. You're building it as you're falling.
Yeah.
And that is really... It is such a great description of it.
So that's the bravery. You're standing up there and you're like,
just do it. Yeah.
Go.
So, and then the rest of the story, I'll kind of fast track it so I ended up doing my first deal in a little over 60 days. It was a tiny one. I think I made like $500. And then my next deal came even shorter, and I made like $3,300. And then the next deal was 5,000, and the next one was 10, and then 15, and so it was like I had built this cushion to where now I could actually go in and if I wanted to buy these properties myself and take them down, I could. And basically the premise of how you do that in real estate investing, where you can make marginal spreads on these houses without owning them or fixing them. It's a process called wholesaling. Some people are familiar with it, some people aren't, but to dumb it down, it's basically like you're finding an off-market property that's not listed. It's distressed.
Okay.
It's, needs work. It has a seller that has extreme forms of motivation. So something in their life is going drastically wrong, whether that's they're about to be in foreclosure, they haven't paid their taxes, they inherited a property, they're going through a divorce, they're maxed out with credit, something that's creating a reason why they're going to sell their property for basically 50 to 60% of what it's actually worth if it's fixed up. So what I would do is I would go in there, target this person with marketing. I'd find them, say, hey, I'm interested in purchasing these properties. We pay cash. We close in less than 30 days, and we pay for all your closing costs. Take it as is. We take care of it. Super simple. And then we basically lock that property up in what's called a purchase and sale agreement. And that basically gives me the legal right to effectively control that property while I'm under contract to close it under the terms that we agreed to close on.
Right.
So I'm coming in, and then what we would do is that contract has assignable rights. So basically I could say, okay, I'm going to buy your property for, just use easy numbers, $60,000. But if someone were to spend 30 or 40 into it, it might be worth $150,000 when it's finished.
Right.
So then what I would do is I would go to a flipper that's going to rehab the project, and they also pay cash. They close in less than 30 days. They do the same terms that I structured with this seller. And then I would assign my right to purchase and close to them for like $10,000 more than my purchase price.
So you're not actually doing any of the remodel, because I think like
at that time,
when you say flipper, right?
Yeah, most people think, hey, but
buy a house, fix it up, sell it.
Yeah, but what a lot of people don't realize is there's this entire ecosystem of, flippers, they're focused on all the rehab shit because there's so many moving parts in a rehab.
Right.
How do they focus on getting their next deal? They don't.
Yeah.
People that all they do is focus on buying shitty ass houses, they feed them to flippers. That's where they get their deals from.
Okay.
So they can focus on rehabbing, and flippers and the people, wholesalers, they're buying these properties at wholesale and then selling them to flippers. So
that's cool.
So that was, and then, once you build up enough, you can actually start becoming the flipper, was kind of the thing. And so my first year doing it full time, I did just under 25 of those deals. And then I also ended up buying my first apartment building, which kind of segued into
Here's what I kind of see happening. You're in this insurance thing, and you're basically getting leads off of marketing, right? And you kind of took part of that to kind of buy these properties, which when you said flipper, I'm imagining the next step coming, but you're like this, just again, another marketing thing.
Yeah.
And then finding kind of leads in there.
Yeah. But
then you are making more money eventually. And then you get yourself into where you can actually be the flipper.
Yeah.
So now, how much of this are you doing now as far as like the finding the deals, not using your own money to buy the house?
Yeah.
And now you're the flipper. Are you the whole thing now, or?
No, yeah. So now it's more of like, I actually prefer to buy deals from wholesalers.
Okay. You went from wholesaler to.
Yeah. Because, I learned over the years to really hate wholesaling, because you're sandwiched in between, first of all, a seller that's generally mentally unstable.
Right, they got themselves in trouble.
What they're dealing with. So they're a very difficult and fragile human being to deal with.
Okay.
Very stressful. Then on the other side of that sandwich is a flipper who their name of their game is, I want to pay nothing for something.
Right.
And the problem with the market, how it is it's like there's not a lot of somethings anymore. There's so it became challenging. And as my story kind of progressed, I bought into the apartment building, which I learned the commercial side. And so I did that with a partner. We raised all the rents and did value add there. And then once we got into capital gains, which is holding a property over 12 months, we resold. And then I ended up buying another apartment building and then did the same thing there. And then after that, I was like in this period where I was like sitting on, more cash than I'd ever really had. And I was like, but what do I do with this? Because the market was heating up and I felt like things were, very expensive and inflated. And then that's when I bought my franchise, which I still have now, which we were kind of talking about before.
Oh, yeah. So for people listening to Capital, you held the property for 12 months because like a stock, you don't have to pay as much tax on it, right?
Yes.
If you hold it for 12 months.
Exactly. Yeah. And most investors want to do that. Ordinary income tax is if you flip something quickly or whatever, you're going to be taxed at the highest rate. But if you hold longer than 12 months, it goes into capital gains, which previously had been 15%. Instead of, if you're making several $100,000 a year, you're going to be paying 30% plus.
Oh, right.
So and I learned a lot there. And then, I've learned to not like some of the things that I've, done. And,
right.
And I guess one of the biggest lessons I'm learning now is, there is a such thing as doing too much, and sometimes taking things off of your plate is more valuable than putting more things on it. Because if you're, I don't care how much money you're making. I feel like if all you're doing is working and, dealing with problems all day long,
you might as well go work for somebody else.
Your mental health is just gonna.
Yeah, your time is what the whole reason, why most people are chasing money in the first place is because they desire more freedom or to do what they want or that shit.
Maybe that's why people get stuck before they get. The idea of an entrepreneur opening a business is, man, I got kids, I got a house, I got all this stuff to pay for, and so I'd rather just go to work and make money there.
Yeah.
And hopefully that works out for you. Hopefully you like it.
Yeah.
Versus I can't take all this onto my plate. I think that might be where I was.
Yeah. I mean, I feel like, even now, like if I was to advise someone that's like, hey, I want to whatever, do my own thing, get into entrepreneurship, or, just maximize passive income.
Right.
But they have a really good job, like that's paying them pretty decently. I would, my advice would be, keep the job, even if it's on a temporary thing.
Right.
Get your expenses down as close to zero as possible. Like, organize your life so that, whatever income you're bringing in, you can just bankroll.
Yeah.
And then you need to, start buying either rental properties or properties that can be Airbnbs. So that way the cash you're stacking up is now, multiplying, and it doesn't really take that much time away from, your daily life. And then there will be a tipping point where the income you're receiving from your passive income or your investments will start to outweigh what you're getting paid at your job.
Mm-hmm.
And then once that tipping point is reached, then you can say, okay, well, first of all, there's no jump anymore because you're jumping into stable income.
You're sliding.
Yeah, you're sliding like an emergency. And then, then from there, it's like, okay, well, I know this is working, so I just need to do more of it. And,
Right. Right. Then you just start pumping it out. That's cool.
Yeah, and I'd say, one of the bigger lessons I've learned is I've made mistakes in analyzing things from a financial analysis perspective and things that look outstandingly great on paper. And I've dove into those things and put a lot of money into them, and then never took into effect, like, would I actually like this? Am I passionate about it? It was just like, yo, it makes good sound investment, sense.
On paper, it looks great.
Yeah. And then when you get into the weeds, you're like, yo, I fucking hate this, so, and that's kind of the example of, the whole franchise thing looked outstanding on paper. And then it's like in the middle of it, I'm like, yo, I can't do this anymore. So,
yeah, because then you become a GM and an owner and a worker and then you're like, oh, I got this property over here.
Yeah.
Now you got all that on your plate.
Exactly.
So that's probably what you were thinking about when you said, I've learned not to take too much and put it on my plate or whatever.
Yeah. And I mean, that's part of the downside to being an entrepreneur is like, I tell this to people, like, when you realize that you don't like something that you own, especially if there's like employees and shit involved and liability and overhead, like, I just can't walk in and be like, yo, I quit. I hate this place. Like there is a divorce process, and it takes, probably half a year or longer to really like get something out of your life, like, cause the restaurant's a great example. I've realized, like, the restaurant business is not for me. I'm not a fan. I don't really like it. And that's okay.
Yeah.
But for me to learn that lesson, like, to get this chapter out of my life, it's like, I have to get it way more profitable. So I have to adjust things
during the shutdown.
Yeah, I gotta get things more profitable. I gotta increase revenue. I got to deal with things operational. I get to then get all my P&Ls organized and make all my books look as good as possible. And then I get to list the business for sale. So then I have to sell the business. And then to close a business, you're talking, there's all sorts of moving parts. It's, are you going to take over my lease? Are you going to take over my loan? Are you going to do a new term of financing? Like, there's all these moving parts. So A to Z to complete all that. I mean, it could be a year, could be, 6 months to 12 months. And it's like, to get something that every day when I think about going there, it's like next to puking.
Right.
So it's like,
it's a lot, especially during when you can't be open, shutdowns and people getting sick or whatever.
Yeah.
It's hard enough to, I was in a management position, so I wasn't being paid like an owner would.
Yeah.
But I would have to hire people and
sometimes
train
owners
them.
don't get paid, just so you know.
Oh yeah,
like,
yeah.
I haven't taken a penny out of the restaurant. And it opened in December. It's been
you've just been kind of
money just goes out the door in that business for me. And sometimes it's like I have employees that they cop attitudes or whatever. And I was like, yo, let me remind you, you've been fucking paid to be here. Right. I have not. And I still have to deal with all these different things.
Still got to deal with you, man.
I was like, yo, I haven't made $1.
Right.
You know, like I know you think you're worth more than, you know, whatever, 10,
maybe
12,
you are, but
and maybe you are, but at least you're getting $10 an hour. I'm getting $0 an hour.
right.
So
And you have to deal with all this other stuff.
yeah. So
I think that's a lot of apprehension for people is they know maybe instinctively that they didn't have the base that you had where you kind of were fed into entrepreneurship almost like your dad had this way of thinking, and then you like, okay, I'll take some of that and I'll do that, but you found out right away, which a lot of people just live with the pain, and so you went on this journey, you know.
And it's weird because I watch those TV shows, you know, where I like see those people and they're like, yo, they've been doing pain and struggle and depression for like 5 years trying to do the same thing, and
they end up like this.
Yeah. And then they're like on they're like on this TV show and like you can see it and it's like, dude, why didn't you like shift or change or like put the business for sale or something? Like, how are you gonna live like that for
something you said earlier on? I think would be, you get to 12, you went to a private school, you're in 12th grade, they're learning stuff that you were learning in 6th grade. So I think it may be just, they don't teach us anything in the public school, you know, about what do you got? Home economics, and then you have maybe another semester or something to deal with financial stuff, and so we just
very minimal.
We're very filled in certain areas, but not in the stuff that like that would be like, to me that's kind of like a blessing that your dad knew about financial stuff. He wasn't just a worker.
Yeah, it was interesting, and I mean I tell Brandon this too, and a lot of other people. You know, your environment is huge in where you know turn out and how you turn out in life. And I was kind of bred the opposite of like, my dad would always tell me like, hey, if you want to get somewhere in life, or if you want to, you know, be successful, like you have to be your own boss. Like you know, and some of that is probably a little bit flawed thinking, but for the most part, I mean, I was always taught like, you know, don't go work for someone else. It was, you know, I was bred, you know, kind of the opposite way of,
your average American family,
you know,
like, save your money,
save your money and get a good job and get an education and
don't upset your boss.
Yeah.
Don't be late.
So my dad had always kind of said like, you know, Logan, don't listen to, you know, what some of those people have today. Your teachers don't know shit. They're teachers, you know. I'm like, which, you know, that's kind of an asshole thing to say, but my dad would always say that shit. He's like, well, they're giving you advice because they make $35,000 a year on a salary. Like, how valuable of advice can that be? And I'm like, you know, but it really goes to show you the system is designed to churn out workers. It's not designed to, you know, push the next Elon Musk or whatever, you know. And,
I don't really think the system has any way of doing creating an Elon Musk. I mean, how do you? It's impossible. What could you possibly do to? I mean, that's a 1 out of a 7 billion.
Yeah, I mean, I'm still excited for the day that colleges don't exist. It's just such a failing equation, and I mean, with the exception of if you're going to be an attorney or a doctor, I get that it's necessary. Architects, you know, stuff like that.
There's like 5 professions where I can see having to go to school, you know, for 8 years.
The rest of it, it's like, dude, they're and this is real life. Like, I went to college, I got a 4-year education. My parents forced me to go. I did not want to go. I studied business.
Well, your mom wanted you to go. Your dad really didn't.
My dad
care
didn't give a fuck.
Yeah, your mom was like, if you don't go to college, and I remember that.
My mom was like super, and my mom lives in scarcity, and she's very afraid of, you know, everything. So everything in her life's about safety and security. And my dad's a risk taker, and, you know, different philosophies. So my mom was very much like the safety net, you know, get an education, blah, blah, blah. So I'm like, look, you know, I don't want to go. It's not for me. But if you want me to go, then that's fine. But like, I'm not taking on any debt. Like, you guys are going to pay for everything because I don't want to go, but I'll go for you.
Right.
So I served my 4-year sentence, and I studied business because I knew it would take the least amount of effort because I knew the most about it.
Right.
And there was maybe 3 classes that I actually had to like try. And yeah, I got done in 4 years, and if I had skipped, I'd be 4 years ahead of where I am today.
Right.
But the shit that they are teaching you is 5 years behind of what's actually happening in business.
Yeah.
I saw a statistic that said that 80% of people going to college now are going for technologies that don't even exist. Like
anymore.
Anymore.
That's what
by the time you get out.
Yeah. Like in my business marketing classes, like
Goofy.
they're teaching you shit about like billboard ads. It's like, bro, there should be like, how do you run pay-per-click campaigns? How do you do Facebook ads? How do you scale Facebook ads?
Right,
like that's how
right.
people fucking market today.
That's marketing.
You know, you don't
Yeah.
need to teach me about billboards and newspapers. That's ridiculous.
90s.
Right.
You know, but
That's
that's
the
like
90s.
that's what they're teaching you.
And you're paying how much to learn that?
Yeah, you know, whatever. It's 50 to 80 grand at the end of 4 years. And, you know, most people are acquiring debt to do that, which is insane.
And then it's like 90% of people don't even go for the career they went
Yeah.
to college for.
And
they
most
don't
of
even know
it
what
you
to
can
do.
learn on YouTube. Truthfully, I mean, I get entrepreneurs that come to me all the time. They're like, "Yo, how do I do my accounting?" It's like, well, first of all, here's the first rule: if your business makes more than $250,000 a year, you have no business doing your accounting. Period. End of story.
Right.
Second thing is, if you make less than that, go on YouTube and type in "how do I use QuickBooks for beginners," and you'll be fine.
Right.
Other than that, like, you don't need to do, you can hire a bookkeeper for fucking $80 a week and call it a day,
Right.
you know,
Right.
like, but
We're too spread out and
yeah,
the focus. So many people are not focused. They have the ADHD or
Mhm.
whatever. And everybody's got a little bit of that, I think.
Yeah.
You just, again, you made a decision to put yourself in a proximity of surroundings that helped you focus. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
like if I'm at school and I'm going, okay, I got world history, then I got math, then I got language, then I got this, then I got PE. Thank God I got PE. Oh man, because I hate all this other stuff. And then I got home. You know, you're like, okay, now I gotta organize
Yeah.
all this stuff. And then you grow up, you get a business, and you like hire a bunch of people to do all that.
Yeah,
stuff
it's
for you.
interesting because like what I've noticed over the years is the people that are really good in school seem to not be really good at life, you know, in terms of like, because in school everything has an instruction manual and a roadmap of like,
Yep.
if you want to get an A, this is what you have to do. It's step 1, step 2, step 3, right? And then you go out into the real world, and if you're trying to do something on your own, it's like there's nothing. There's no like, oh, what do you do to go, you know, make money?
Yeah.
You know, like there's no instruction manual. So it's like people that are used to that environment where it's like everything comes with instructions, then they like freeze up. They like, well, what do I do?
Yeah.
I got lucky with that, man, because I remember, I'm not going to say anybody's name or whatever, just in case, but but when I was going to school, you know, and I went to school for a thing that most people are like, that was a waste of your time, dude. I still don't feel like it was. I went for fine art. Okay, everybody's like, oh, that's awesome, dude. What do you know how to paint well now? You know, you know what red goes with what blue best. You friggin'. But it did teach me a lot, especially when it comes to like the studio. You know, I know how to run these programs very well, and
Yeah.
I have an aesthetic eye. You know, I was able to, you know, help with setting this room up and the blah, blah, blah. So it
Right.
actually does pay off. But I got lucky because, yes, I like the school system. You know, I like to learn, and I liked going through my courses and going all this stuff. But I would kick back on almost all of my teachers. Like when they'd be like, okay, Brandon, you have to do this project just like this. And I'd be like, what's the point of being in art school then? Like, if I can't do it my way, why am I here? You know what I mean? Like,
Right.
and so I got lucky that I wasn't like totally brainwashed into thinking like everything has to be done a certain way. Cause like in stuff like this, like something me and Travis have been saying forever now is, you know, like we're just going to like kind of let things happen to a degree. You can't just sit around and like, oh, the customer comes in today, but
Right.
it's kind of hard to explain, I guess. It's like there's this weird balance of like jumping out of the plane without the parachute and just building the parachute. But
That's
then
kind of where we are. We're building the parachute.
yeah, we're building the parachute.
Yeah.
But then I guess there's also, for me anyway, I'll see, just be personal with it. It's like I guess you have to kind of know going into something like this, an entrepreneur, you know, anything with that in mind. You almost have to be like, well, I could hit the ground. Like
Yeah.
I could hit the ground.
I
Like,
mean, I think it's kind of like,
know, like-
it's kind of like saying, you know, manifestation without action is just wishes,
right.
you know, and I do believe in manifestation, and I think it's extremely powerful. But if you just sit and manifest all day and do nothing, you know, it's not really going to change anything.
Nothing's gonna happen.
Just kind of feeding yourself information.
Yeah, exactly. So I think, you know, and what I have realized working with people that are either aspiring entrepreneurs or they're entrepreneurs that are just getting started and they need to like really gain traction. I always tell them, like, look, if you ever met a super wealthy guy, like if you ever met, or a woman or someone that you know is like very successful, very wealthy, and like when you meet them, you have this moment of like, yo, this is just another human being. Like the difference between me and them is what? 90% of the time, it's just obsessive committed action.
Yeah.
That's the only difference.
Yeah.
They are just like you, but they, instead of sitting and thinking about what they should do, they already did 5 things. And 4 of them didn't work, but 1 really did. And then they went fucking ham on the one that worked.
Yep.
Yeah, they had the attitude or aptitude to just keep pushing, and something stuck. It's like like a celebrity or something that's good at a movie.
Yep.
They didn't have the fear of, oh man, I don't want to be in front of a camera and this and that. They were just like, I'm gonna jump into this. And they just had these. That's the only difference. Is just a person.
Yep.
I mean, like The Rock is just a dude.
Yeah.
Right.
And he's like, his discipline is really probably his best.
Yep.
Attribute. But I think analysis paralysis really, kills a lot of people's, things that they want to do. And even right now, I have a student I'm working with, and he was like, I went to file my new LLC and I got stuck thinking about the name. So I just couldn't figure out a name, and I just pushed it to, then a week went by. I'm like, dude, no one gives a fuck what your name is. Like,
just own it.
Don't. Just pick a name and let's go, And then what I did is one thing that's been a huge breakthrough for me and the self-growth that I've gone through has been these things called buy wins, which is basically like, okay, great, you want to do this, by when? Like what? When? When is it going to happen?
Right.
Like what's the date? And so it was like I got on the phone with him. I was like, by when is the LLC going to be finished? How about 7:30 tonight?
Right.
And it's like, oh, okay. And then I'm like, great. So you're going to get a text from me at 7:30, and if it's not done, I'm just going to keep on you.
Right.
And then it gets done. And so creating, like, when you set goals, if you don't have the by when it needs to be accomplished, then it's just a list of wishes you'd like to have at some fucking point in life.
Right.
And so creating those constructs really helps people get into like, oh, this action needs to happen by this time.
Yeah. I guess it would be kind of easy at that point where you could get stuck into that too. Like, okay, I was this kind of lame duck. And then someone told me by when, and I just, ever since then, I never really slowed down.
Mm-hmm.
So there's got to be some kind of balance that you should probably think of too. They're unbalanced. It's like you could have 2 people, extreme differences. One guy's wearing himself the heck out.
Yeah.
The other guy's like,
what?
The whole time.
Yeah.
So it's kind of, where's the balance come from? Like, what,
Yeah, I mean, I think balance is all constant practice, and it's probably an illusion,
right.
of balance, like, what does that really mean? I think everyone's life is different.
Right.
But yeah, I mean, I can relate to that. I mean, I probably am on the spectrum of doing too much.
Okay.
And so one of the shifts I'm working on right now is, instead of living in ways of doing, transitioning into ways of being,
Okay.
like how am I being, how am I showing up? And, I think you internally will feel when you do too much, like you're always stressed, you're anxious, you're worried, you get sick. And then you get to, restructure your life. But, at the same time, there are people that, struggle taking action, and they need that, help and assistance. And
I used to struggle taking action for sure, man. That was a huge problem I had
for sure.
For years, is I just would get so in my head, like the analysis process. I was really bad about the analysis process, dude. So,
and it's a perfectionism thing, it really is. You want,
you talk about that all the time, dude, about how you never did anything out of fear of someone being like, oh, you suck, dude.
Yeah.
Oh,
so you just don't do anything because you're like, oh, I'd rather just not do anything then.
And a lot of that is childhood stuff. And, you know, like I've gone into the self-development and growth and mental health and, you know, definitely gone down that and gotten to experience that. And you learn a lot is like, man, the reason why I do these things is because, you know, when I was 5, something happened that made me feel...
My dad popped a balloon near me, and now I'm terrified of weird
sounds. Yeah.
You know, and for me, it's like even the reason why I was attracted to business in the first place was because I didn't have a lot of attention from my dad, and the way that I felt like I could get attention from my father,
emulate him, you know,
would be to do what he thought was interesting and cool, which was business. Yeah. And that's kind of what spurred me into, you know, getting into it at a young age and wanting to be really great at those things. And you realize, you know, why you do certain things and what it really stems from, and
where it comes from,
really starts to help you and how you operate on a daily basis, for sure.
There's been situations in my life where I would say I hit like a rock bottom type of thing where something was taken from me, or I wasn't paying attention to something, and I found myself having to rely on my core beliefs.
Sure.
Right. So like you might want to hit that.
Yeah, this dude's a little, our ATEM's a little frozen.
Is
hey,
it?
there
Is
he
it?
goes. Yeah, I just fixed it, I think. No, we're just going to look at Logan for the remainder of the 10 minutes here.
But the interesting thing was I always found myself kind of going back to my core beliefs, and then I would rely on myself. It would get me somewhere to like a pivot point or to a place I needed to be. For me, it was my faith in God and everything. So I find myself hurting, and I go and I pray and I get myself, and he gets me, or the system gets me to a certain point, and then that's when I'm like, okay, I'm good now. Let me go back to my old self.
Yeah.
You know, and then you end up like slowly creeping back into like back on your knees type of thing. And then I just started to kind of pray and go, I don't want it to take something traumatic to get me to follow what works.
Yeah.
You know, I know what works.
Yeah.
Kind of. I don't really, I got it down to the like, do I really care about my core beliefs? Do I really even, but they get me where I need to be all the time. And then I get there and I see exactly what I need to do. Yeah. It's like a weird spiritual thing. It's like, okay, I got it all set up for you. Told you I'd be there for you. Yeah. And then I'm like, I get scared. Yeah. And I'm like, oh, that would take more faith, more risk.
Yeah.
And I think that's something I've been constantly working on. And I've been getting a little step further every time it happens. But now I'm like, I don't want to have something break me down to where I'm like
having to go all the way back
having
to
to
that
follow.
basis.
Yeah. I want to just keep following and keep on this program and have more added to me as I'm going along. You know what I'm saying? It's kind of where I think it was about 2013 is where something had happened traumatic in my life, and it was able to empty me enough to show me enough to where I ended up back praying on my knees, and then I could hear everything because it's empty. My proximity kind of shrunk around me, and I only was relying on that source for me, and it just got me right where I needed to be, and boom, there I was, and I was like, okay, you're here and all, but I'm too scared to take it, so let me go back to what I know, and it would carry me on for another
6 months. I mean, that's me, man. I mean, I didn't really quote figure myself out fully until a year and a half ago. I'm not kidding. It was when I was like at one of the lowest points in my life. You know, my long-term girlfriend and I had just broken up and had gone through an abortion, and I didn't have anywhere to live except my mom's, basically, if that's what I wanted to do. So I'm sitting there like talking to him on the phone, just like, I don't know what I'm going to do, man. Honestly, like, I guess I'm going to have to go back home or something for a while and get my, and he's like, well, dude, I got a spare bedroom that's literally just collecting dust.
That's cool.
If you want to stay, like, because it was right across from Sam Ash. He lived in those K-pop park area. And I'm like, I don't know, man. You just got married and he's like, bro, it's me and Denise. It's not like some girl you. I mean, I've known his wife for 15, 16 years too.
Yeah, exactly.
Because they met in high school, and I met her literally like the third week they were dating. You know, because I was like, him and I were always that guy. It's like, hey man, so I got this new girlfriend. I'm ready for you to meet her, bro.
Yeah. It was like meeting parents, basically.
Yeah, it was. It was like,
or
every time I had a girlfriend, I had to be like, hey, listen, you're about to be my boy Logan. He came first, all right? So if he doesn't like you,
it was
you're
always
gone,
it was always
know?
kind of like, this person's not going anywhere,
Yeah.
so either like you guys are gonna like each other, or like you have to get eliminated.
Yeah, you have to go because
Brandon's not getting eliminated. So
Right.
this dude's been hanging with me.
He watches my blind side, and he's
exactly.
Yeah, and and there was literally out of our entire life, because I mean we met so young, it's literally almost our entire existence. I think there was 2 years when at that point where I had switched out of schools and we had gotten into high school, and then you and Denise were all serious. I had a girlfriend, was all serious with. I had gotten really serious with my music and my art, and we just didn't really talk. It wasn't like we had a falling out. We just didn't talk, and then all of a sudden we were like, dude, why aren't we talking? Like, what's going on? Like, I know we got busy there. We need to hang out, man. This is dumb. So, but I think we're at that point, man. We need to get you back in here and like have another conversation, because we can. I mean, dude, this could be like an all day thing. We could peel this back for 4 or 5 hours, but it was really cool finally getting you in here, man. I like getting people in here that are like I'm close with. You know, it's like this becomes real for me. You know, bringing in like real situations.
Someone that's walked a different, like from an early age. That I just admire the courage it must have taken to jump from one industry to another. I've kind of done the same thing, but I was more like inserting myself in. I get bored of like serving tables.
Yeah.
I would work all the different things you could do in a restaurant.
Yeah.
There were some things I didn't want to do, some things I did. So I'd wear that out just to keep my mind going. And then I go, okay, let me go try, selling stuff.
Yeah.
And then I get bored of that. Let's go back to serving.
Well, I think it's
get bored of that.
Especially in your, 20s and even 30s. I mean, I was listening to something last night where it's like, with all how fast technology is, advancing, like if we take good care of ourselves, like it's actually pretty realistic that we could live to 150. Yeah. So if you think about that, you have 3 segments of 50-year periods of your life to get shit, to do what you want to do. But I think, you try a bunch of different stuff, figure out what you like, what you don't like.
I think that's what it really is all about, man. I mean, obviously you got to have some kind of something that's generating some kind of money so you can live.
You can't live in fantasy land. You have to be somewhat realistic, but I think, you can figure out how to survive. And
you can play with it. You know what I mean?
Like when you're young, maybe start buying dividend stocks instead of bags of weed.
I mean, it's
that would have been a good one for me to know about when I was young.
It's really funny because I have, certain people that are in my sphere or people that work for me at, whatever. And they're like, hey, I'm trying to like get my, finances together and, save some money so I can invest or whatever. And I'm like, well, how much do you spend on weed every month? And they're like, I'm like, well, let's just reverse engineer this real quick, because this is how my brain works, and get to the numbers real quick. I'm like, well, they're like, I don't really know. And I'm like, okay, but I bet you know how long it takes you to go through an ounce. And they're like, oh, yeah, I could blow through an ounce in like 10 days. I'm like, great, do the math real quick. I'm like, all right, bro, you spend like $400 a month on weed times 12. You're spending like, $5,000 a year on weed.
That could be an invest. That could be a venture right there, dude. Yeah,
exactly. So it's like
that's
they're
your,
like
IRA. That's your IRA.
Yeah, I mean, we could go down that rabbit hole because I hate those investments. But anyways,
well, I get what you're saying. Yeah, but it'd be better than buying bags of weed.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, it's better than buying bags of weed. But I think dividend portfolios are pretty interesting. I think that's a great way. It's going to take a lot of cash to generate some decent, income, but at least you get paid for, holding stuff.
As long as it grows, right? As you're being paid.
Yeah. I mean, I think personally, and I don't mean to, hijack the time. You can always probably re-edit
we're
that.
Good, man. It doesn't matter.
Good.
It doesn't matter.
But yeah, like I love these examples of people that are like, they're getting started. And they're like, yo, like, how do I get out of the rat race? Like, people are like, yo, I want to be wealthy. I want to be rich. But they're like,
really?
Yeah. Like, I've never met someone that said no to that,
Right.
But there are people that are really committed to it. But they're like, they have a job. They're starting out. They're like, what's the path, And I think what makes the most sense, in my opinion, is you need to get yourself lendable. So you need to get your credit score in order. You need to have a job for at least 2 years where you have, consistent income and tax returns. And then at that point, you're now lendable, right? So now you can borrow to buy a house, a mortgage, whatever.
Right.
And I think the best thing is either your first purchase should be either a duplex, triplex, quadruplex, or you should do house hacking. And for those of you who don't know what that is, just Google it. But the duplex through quadruplex means you get either 2 apartments, 3 apartments, or 4 apartments, but it all counts as a normal single family house. And you can do an FHA loan, which you pay 3.5% down. So quick math, for every $100,000 you borrow, it costs you $3,500 of your cash, right? So $200,000 is going to cost you $7,000. So most people, in the time it takes you to get lendable and deal with your credit score, you can save between $3,000 and $8,000. But what you're doing now is not only will you be able to live for free, because the income brought in from the other unit will pay for the mortgage.
Right.
Or if you can get enough units, like a 3 or a 4, it'll actually generate income and pay for your cost of living.
Right.
So now you put yourself in a position where, okay, I have real estate. It's paying for me to live. So now I have almost no cost of living other than, food, insurance, and gas. Right.
Mm-hmm.
So now your expenses are down to 0. And so now the money that you're making income wise is just stacking.
Right.
Right. And then you're there. And then if you're making any money from that, then that's also on top of your income. And then you can rinse and repeat a year later.
Right.
So now you've put yourself in a position where now you can actually gain wealth because your money's not being spent to exist. It's stacking and then being re-put out to generate more.
Right.
And so that's how they can get out of it.
That initial $3,500 for $100,000, they look at it, I'm missing my $3,500, but they don't have the mentality of cash is trash.
Exactly.
So that $3,500 has now become, you've just multiplied
income.
Right. Like, so now, you're in the asset.
Exactly.
Right. I got a $100,000 asset.
Yeah. And that doesn't even include what the equity could be worth, down the road. But assume you have no equity. And this is, I think, the biggest flaw, because I flip out when I hear like realtors that are like, your home is an investment. This is why you should buy a home. It's like they're in the business to get you to buy and sell fucking houses. Like, but it's just mind blowing to me because people are going out and buying homes for 100% of what they're worth. And they're like, well, I'm not paying rent, so my thing is going towards equity. You don't have equity.
Right.
You paid 100% of what 100% is worth. And then when they don't factor in order to turn that equity into cash again, you got to pay 6 to 7% to liquidate it.
Mm-hmm.
So until you have more than 10% equity, you have no equity. You have 0.
Right.
Because you're gonna lose just from turning it back into money.
Right.
So, and you can't really bank that, it's just gonna go up in value. Like, and maybe it will, but maybe it won't. Huh. So, I mean, my view on equity is if you have equity from the moment you close and you turn the key, then you actually have equity.
Right.
But
don't assume it.
Yeah.
Don't assume it's coming.
I think the only way to really do that is you have to buy the property for at least 20% less than what it's actually worth.
And then,
which most people, if they're using a realtor to move into a house, they're not buying properties that are, distressed or less than what they're worth.
Right.
So,
and most people wouldn't even want a house. They wouldn't understand that, I can't, unless the person's really intelligent and knows the market and knows all these facts. Like, I'm literally sitting here thinking about like a couple walking into a house and the guy might have a little bit and be like, oh, honey, this is a little distressed. We could actually have some equity. The kitchen looks like crap. You know what I mean? Like, people want
turnkey. They want, finished products. And there's always going to be a need for that. But I love that you brought up the whole cash is trash thing.
Yeah.
Because people don't take into account, inflation. which right now is somewhere between 3 and 4% per year, and only going to get worse as we continue to print. But that's
we're going to lose the reserve currency maybe.
Yeah, I probably have that as a theory as well, and I don't know if it's borderline conspiracy or if it's logical at this point, but I think that that's a very legitimate reason as to why the government can feel so comfortable just printing infinitely, because now there's a backup plan. There didn't used to be.
Yeah.
Now there's a feasible and realistic backup plan where cryptos could effectively replace currency.
Yeah.
And you're seeing some smaller countries where they've, basically made their currency worthless, switch over to crypto as a legal tender. And
that makes a heck of a lot of sense for someone living in a country under dictatorship or something.
Yeah.
And the actual community could just bypass their government.
Well, I even see it now, like in certain investment things, like back in when COVID was like in the thick of it, and they started passing all of these, bailout plans and all that shit. I went and bought a bunch of like gold fund things in my portfolio, right? And I'm like, well, look, historically speaking, when the government starts printing money and inflation occurs, which it will, gold and precious metals tend to rise in value. Okay. My gold has done nothing but go down in value while inflation is skyrocketing. Why the fuck is that happening? It doesn't even make sense. Why? Right. Because now there's another place for the money that would normally be in currency and flow into gold, which would make gold go up. Now there's another place it's going. Yep. It's going to crypto.
Right.
So now instead of gold receiving the benefits of that value, it's Ethereum and Bitcoin and all of these other coins. Yeah. Doge. And I hold Doge. I still hold Doge. Please go to $1.
Yeah, me too.
But yeah, it's interesting. So like you're seeing these things where if you study economics, you're like, this should be happening, but it's not. Why?
This is unprecedented. It's like
we're learning.
This is the first time this has ever happened this way.
We're like exactly,
and not just with the economy.
Yeah,
not just with the economy. This is the first time in history, not just in our country, all over the world, that all these things are happening the way they're happening. So everybody's sitting around going, what the fuck?
What's going on? There's a lot that's not adding up right now.
Yeah, and if you actually have studied economics, and I like economics, and I'm like, dude, there's certain principles, and they're basically like rules to live by. It's like they're just like out the door.
Shattered.
Yeah,
they're being shattered.
And so I'm puzzled on some things, and the real estate still for me is I could be convinced either way that it'll continue to go up. I could also be convinced that it'll crash. Like I could see it going either way. And I have logical positions that I could explain both sides of the coin. So, I mean, I don't know. It's tough, but Florida is one of those anomaly markets, right? Where it's like, there's so many people moving here and there's not enough places for those people to currently live. So again, back to economics, the only way prices come down is if supply is greater than demand. Right. And right now we have excess demand and not enough supply.
Like 40% more demand than...
Exactly.
Yep. And we're dealing with all these demand issues.
If the real estate market in the country just shit itself, Florida would not be like that because of how many people keep moving here. But the only thing that could throw a giant monkey wrench into that is if the interest rates change, because the less you can borrow means the less you can pay for the same house, which means prices would have to adjust because the amount of money people could get their hands on would be less.
Change, yeah.
But then again, what competes against that? Inflation. So those two forces are like fighting each other. That's what makes this thing so fucking confusing is you have demand and supply. You also have interest rates. You also have inflation.
Then you throw crypto in there.
Right. Like I'm not going to lie. Like if I'm about to list this house that I'm flipping, and if someone came to me and gave me, $425,000 worth of Bitcoin instead of cash, I'd fucking take it.
Yeah.
I wouldn't be a conversation. I'd be like, yeah.
Yeah, because that's going to be going up.
Yeah, I mean, I don't see how it doesn't. It might go down in periods of time, but over a 7 or 10 year period, like yeah, Bitcoins will be worth $1 million one day for sure.
I think it's feasible to say that in our lifetime, we will see an advent of the entire system pretty much being reinvented. I do believe
It's called the Great Reset.
Yeah,
I do
global
believe that.
reset. Isn't that a conversation? That's a whole episode.
That's a whole episode.
Yeah.
That's what I mean.
The global
you could
reset.
you could just go and go.
Yeah.
So, but I do believe that. I don't know if it's going to happen, this year, or 10 years, or if I'm 60 years old and on a ventilator and I'm seeing all this happening.
Well,
but
it certainly won't be at 60, probably 160.
Yeah.
They're going to start replacing certain parts and shit. And,
and
the robots are coming too.
The Neuralink. Yeah, next year.
Dude, I know. I've seen some of the stuff they're making and Tesla powered robots and stuff, and they're trying to make like a home assistant. And I'm like, I don't know.
And it's like, my name is Sophia.
We've seen iRobot. We've all seen iRobot.
Every
right?
time I'm like, yo, I am moving to the desolate forest. I don't want anything to do with
I get a
that
weird
shit.
feeling about that, dude. I don't know why. It just freaks me
I don't even
out.
like Alexa half the time. I'm like,
it just freaks me out, dude.
Bitch is eavesdropping on everything.
I'll say something, man. Me and my girlfriend were sitting on the couch when we first moved in. This was back in 2015. We got a little townhome.
Mm-hmm.
And we're sitting there on the couch, right? And I said something. I forget what it was that I said. It's irrelevant. And I said, and what I just said, we both heard. It repeated back out like you hit record and then hit play. Heard it come right out of our modem behind the TV.
Like heard his own voice come out of the modem.
It's not Alexa. This is before Alexa.
Yeah.
It's before any of that.
Yeah.
I'm just sitting there going, hey, so what are we going to have for dinner tonight? Do you think we should go to whatever? And I heard it repeated back to me.
Wow.
And I'm like,
yeah.
Did you do that?
did you hear that too? And she's like, yeah. And what do you do? I mean,
yeah. I know. It's
burn it.
Maybe we both had a moment of combined schizophrenia. I don't know.
Yeah, you never know.
But it was kind of weird, man. So yeah, they're definitely
something's going on, man.
Yeah,
it's
something's
going
happening.
On. But the good news is our life is now, and we don't have near as much time as we think we do. So
and we got
deal with today's problems.
We got more important things anyway. They can play their games, and we got more important things. But dude, it was so cool having you.
Yeah, bro.
We got into some good stuff.
It's cool meeting somebody like this.
Yeah.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate it.
I told you Logan would be a good episode. He's always a good time. So
yeah,
man, we'll get you back in here at some point.
Thanks for having me on. I'm always here to make myself available for you guys.
Awesome. Awesome.
Yeah, I like this thing that you guys built. It's super
cool.
Little
lab. You like the lab?
No, I mean, I honestly think this is a great business. I think there's tons of people that don't know how to do any of this shit, but produce content or want to produce content.
Yeah, we're meeting them.
We're meeting them. They're out there for sure.
Oh yeah, we're meeting them, man. It's gonna be a good time. So, all right, buddy. Love you, man.
All right, love you too.
Cool, man. Nice to meet you, brother.
Yeah,
you too.
We'll talk in a bit.
Thank you, guys.
See ya.
Well, that's it for this week's episode. Join us again next time for some more crazy stuff. This is the Call Podcast with Travis Powers and Brandon Powers.